it's time to average all the ratings and then display that average to the user. Before you get started, please empty the recipe rating table. We're going to start fresh. Let's get started with averaging the rating first. Inside the r_rate_recipe function, I'm going to add our code right after the database insert. Let's grab the metadata first by calling the get_post_meta. There are two properties we want to update. The first property is the rating_count. This will contain the number of ratings this recipe has had so far. All we need to do is increment this with the double plus sign. Next, we need to average the rating. We can actually use the get_var method for this. Let's use the same query we used last time. This time, we don't need to check for the IP. Instead of count, change this to avg. This is a MySQL function that will calculate the average of a specific column. The column we want to average out is recipe_rating. This query will return the average. I'm going to wrap this query with the round function and set its precision to 1. I don't want a long decimal number. That's basically it. All we have to do now is update this post metadata using the update_post_meta function like so. I'm going to add some comments so that it's easier to read our code. The next step is to display the average rating to the user and prevent them from rating again if they already rated the recipe. Inside the template, add the attribute data-rated-value and set its value to a string placeholder. I'm also going to add a placeholder for the read-only property. Open up the filter function file and replace the rating placeholder with the actual rating. For the read-only property, we're going to borrow the code from the rating function, specifically the rating_count variables. We need to add the WPDB global variable so that we can use the get_var method. We also need to replace the ID in the query with the post object and access the ID property. Now we can simply use a conditional statement and act accordingly. If the user already rated the recipe, then we'll change the read-only placeholder to the data-rated-read-only attribute and set it to true. Otherwise, we'll just replace the placeholder with an empty string. The read-only property is set to false by default, so we don't need to set it ourselves. Rate your recipe to 5 stars. Refresh the page and you should see your rating still there, and you shouldn't be able to rate this recipe again. I'm going to do something you usually shouldn't do. I'm going to go back to the ratings table and I'm going to change the IP of our rating to a random number. I want to test out the average out. I will now be able to rate our recipe again. This time I'm going to rate it a 3. I'll refresh the page one last time, and we should have an average rating of 4. We're finished. Congrats. At this point, we're done with the rating system and the single post. I'm going to give you a challenge. Try and figure out a way so that our plugin allows for users to re-rate a recipe and update the rating accordingly. You will also need to update the average as well. You have the knowledge to handle this challenge. Good luck.